Well, we're finally getting a little bit more daylight each day, and the temperatures at last have started to warm up, so spring is on the way. Sorry to my friends in the Southern Hemisphere, but your turn. So, join me with a tasty beverage of your choice close to hand while we take a look at 6-month updates and talk a bit about Hoya names. And first off, I thank you to everybody who took the time to answer last week's question about what was your first Hoya. I was surprised, and so were a number of other people, that one of the most common answers, if not the most common answer, was plain green Hoya carnosa. And that so many people had gotten cuttings from a friend, from their mother, their mother-in-law. Someone else had given them a cutting of this plant, and it was still growing strong. That's really great. I loved hearing the stories. Those classic plants are classics for a reason. And that was just very, very interesting. It was not an answer I'd expected, but yeah, that was kind of cool. And now some special thanks. The first one goes out to Karen, who sent me a super thanks, and then to Dixie, and someone who bought me coffees, and to Joanne, who set up a regular contribution through my Buy Me a Coffee page. Your support for the channel is really important. I know I say that a lot, but it is most sincerely felt. It's what helps keep me in Hoyas and technology and makes a lot of this possible. So thank you again very, very much for your contributions. And before we get underway, a few little side notes. Some of you may remember that I showed you my Stephania pierrei a week or two ago, and that had really grown and surprised me. It just kept on growing. And so now I've had to re-trellis it, and it is on this incredibly tall trellis. Let's see if I can't get close enough, but the leaves have started to come in, but there were all these other weird little bits, and I couldn't figure out what was going on. And it was blooming. So I think I have some close-ups of the blooms. They're absolutely tiny. Let's see if I can do this. That's against my thumb. Just minuscule. I didn't even realize, I thought they were the weirdest looking leaves I'd ever seen until I looked really close. So yeah, this is turning out to be kind of a fun little adventure. This trellis is now 44 inches. That's 112 centimeters. And it's still hanging down off the top of it. So yeah. Wanted to keep you posted on that. I thought the blooms were really cool. Of course it blooms, but it just never occurred to me. Next one up, let me put this down, is some other really news I'm really thrilled about. And this involves my Papuahoya species 01. And it bloomed for the first time this week. I don't think I can get it. I've got some close-ups. So, because I now have a bloom to work with, I think I can safely identify this as Papuahoya bykulleana. I sent some pictures off to Michaela Rhoda, who was very nice and responded, because I'm nobody, and he's Michaela Rhoda. And said that, yeah, that's what it looked like. So I'm going to work on that principle. This little thing is just a little grow monster. I love the look of the leaves. The whole thing is just very, very interesting. I want to find the others now too. There's 2 more species. So yeah, I'm going to keep an eye out for those. So that was really neat. And then the other thing, everything in the plant room is getting ready to bloom. But what has started again is my Hoya chinghungensis, and this is just kind of a monster of a plant. It's got very neat leaves, very pretty, and it just started blooming the other day. And I'll put some close-ups of the blooms as well. But they're rather nice. I don't really detect a scent, but it's early in the day. That could change. Not early in the day. It's, it's too late in the day for this to be called day drinking. So, but it's doing really well. It's a really pretty plant. This has grown like crazy for me, and I'm really glad to see it starting to bloom again. I like these kind of Hoya blooms. So yeah, this is Hoya chinghungensis. And the first 6-month update is Hoya hypolasia. Now, Hoya hypolasia is native to Papua New Guinea. It was discovered in 1908 and published in 1913 in Botanische Jahrbucher für Systematik, Pflanzengeschichte und Pflanzengeographie, Botanical Yearbooks for Systematics, Plant History, and Plant Geography by Friedrich Rudolf Richard Schlechter. And this came as, I think I've got an arrival picture over here. And pretty much from here on up is new growth. This is one of the original leaves, so that's why it's a little damaged. But the leaves are very, very fuzzy. Rather pretty. There's a new set coming in here, some new ones here. There's new growth on the tip out here. So yeah, Doug Chamberlain said this one's supposed to be a little particular about what it likes. We'll see if I can provide it with that. I just think that leaf shape and the fuzziness is very cool. The leaves are about, let's get out the ruler. So maybe 3 1/4 from petiole to tip, which is about 8 1/4 centimeters. So yeah, this is doing pretty good. It has not, of course, bloomed for me yet, but I have hopes. And yeah, we'll see what comes of this. I'm just happy it sparked up and it's doing okay. So this is Hoya hypolasia, and it came from Rare Herbs Garden NJ on Etsy. Next update is my Hoya mamasa. Now, Hoya mamasa was found in Indonesia on the island of Sulawesi in the province of West Sulawesi near Mamasa. That's where the name comes from. It was collected in 2020 and published in 2022 in Gardens Bulletin by Sri Rahayu, Roland Putra Prabadi Ahmad, and Michaela Rhoda. And I think I have a picture of what it looked like when it arrived. It's a tiny little thing. But there's, I'm going to say, 3 or 4 new leaves, and there's a new vine. So that's very cool. I've kept it underneath a clear cup through the winter just to try and keep the humidity level a little bit higher. There's plenty of moisture in the reservoir, but I wanted to give this thing a chance to really get a good, strong foothold. And I thought the extra humidity might help, and it seems to have worked. As the temperatures get warmer, I think I'm going to take the cup off because there's 2 new leaves and so I'm very pleased about this. Yeah, with the heat running a bit less, the house will be a bit more humid, although I do have a humidifier here in the plant room. But yeah, I'm rather pleased with that, you know? It's not going great guns yet. It's not going to stagger anybody, but it's growing. Hasn't died. Hasn't died. Check that off the list. And it's putting out some new growth. So yeah, I'm interested to see what this one turns into. I can't remember what the blooms look like. I'll have to go look that up. But I wrote it on my list, and so there was some reason I wanted it, and I'm just trusting to my own my own capabilities. Yeah. Anyway, this is Hoya mamasa, and this came from TQ Hoyas on Etsy. The next one up is Hoya mindorensis Purple Star. Now, Hoya mindorensis is native to Kalimantan in Indonesia and Sabah and Sarawak in Malaysia and the Philippines. And it was first published in 1906 in the Philippine Journal of Science by Friedrich Richard Rudolf Schlechter. This one came, well, I think I've got a picture of the arrival photo over here. It came with some nice, pretty enough leaves, but just recently it's pushed out that and a couple of others. There's some new growth points in there, some new leaves. And these new leaves look noticeably larger. It's liable to become a problem, I think. One that I will happily address and deal with. This one came in a kind of a barky sfaggy mix. And when I looked at it, the roots are kind of fine, so I decided I'm not going to try and transfer this one into pon. So I left it in the mix it was in. I kind of roughed up the edges and loosened up the roots a little bit. And it's in a mix of cocoa husk chunks, fine bark, sphagnum, and pumice. And it kind of sat through the winter, and it came with this long vine, if I remember, which, well, that's a peduncle up there. The vine was not happy with me, but I never expect a long vine to survive intact after shipping. I think they just kind of dry out. It just kind of happens. Don't get cranked about it. But there's some new leaves. There's 2 new leaves here. There's 2 more new leaves here. And this long vine. So I'm going to have to come up with definitely an optimistic trellis for this one, which means I'm going to have to find another. Well, no, he lives down here. So on the floor in the fallout from the grow shelf. So he lives just in front of the grow shelf. And that seems to be doing okay. Medium green leaves, so it probably wants an okay amount of light, but not necessarily a lot of bright light. The leaves are, the original leaves I would call rigid. There's no, don't do the taco test with these. They'll snap. It's not really thin-leafed, somewhere in the middle. It's not a thin-leafed, it's not a thick-leafed Hoya. But yeah, I think it's going to want, well, it's thirsty. It's a thirsty little puppy. I've found that for me, this organic mix dries out very quickly, and the reservoirs dry out. Oh, there's another growth point down in there. Cool. Because this organic mixture itself acts as a wick, so it tends to dry out a little bit faster than my pon. So I just have to keep an eye on. I've got a few inorganic mixes. You saw my Discidia last week. A couple of my Discidias are in organic, so we'll keep an eye on that. But it seems to be liking it here so far. I'm very interested to see the blooms. Because it's called Purple Star, they're supposed to be purple. Isn't that amazing how that can work sometimes? And fuzzy. So yeah, I'm excited. This one came from Plant Haven, Toronto, and this is Hoya mindorensis. Next up, we have Hoya paradisea NS11159. Now this clone, and there are a couple of clones of paradisea out there. This one was found in Indonesia, in New Guinea, in Papua, that's the western half of the island of New Guinea, in the western province near the Black River. And it was collected in 2018 by Nathaniel Simonson and her spouse, and I can't find his first name, but I believe that his last name is Johannue. It's native to New Guinea. It was published in 2022 in Blumea, Tijdschrift voor de Systematiek en Geografie der Planten, Blumea, a journal of plant taxonomy and plant geography. And it was published by Nathaniel Simonson and Michaela Rhoda. And the name comes from the exceptionally diverse rainforests of New Guinea, which are often called paradise forests, because there's so much stuff there that hasn't been discovered or even seen yet. So I particularly wanted this one because I like the shape of the leaves, and they have not disappointed. I should have a picture here of what it looked like when it arrived. And this one, this trellis is not very tall. I think I'm gonna need to do an optimistic trellis, but we'll see. This one took off and wrapped around one of these, and I caught it early on, so I backed it out, and you have to be so careful when you're doing that. And the tip died back a little bit, but I figured that would happen. But it was more important that I keep it from going off into craziness. So yeah, it's doing fine. These leaves are new. They're very pretty. The OG leaves down here, if you can see, have a very, very beautiful dark green color. There's slight raised veining on these. Let's see if I can. They're just really neat. That's why I wanted this particular clone. Very happy with this one. This one did really well. I had some concerns because it was a small plant and the leaves are kind of, yeah, the leaves are a little, I would still call this a thin-leafed. Yeah, I would call this a thin-leafed Hoya. It's very, very pretty. It did well. It's survived so far. I think it's going to like the warmer weather. We'll keep our fingers crossed on that one. Yeah, but I'm pleased with how this is done. This is Hoya paradisea NS11159. This came from TQ Hoyas on Etsy. Now, the next one up has really surprised me. And this is Hoya amicabilis. Now, amicabilis is native to Java in Indonesia, Central Java, and Purworejo, or Rejo. I'm not sure on that. It was first collected in 2017 by Misbakul Munir and published in 2019 in Nordic Journal of Botany by Sri Rahayu and Michaela Rhoda. And when this one first showed up, it had not traveled well. Not that the seller didn't do a good job of it or anything, but I don't think it liked traveling. You can see the original leaves down here are, well, yeah, they're not happy. But not long after that, it started pushing out new leaves, and they are just beautiful. There's a little bit of splash on them. They're this gorgeous dark green color. I mean, I think they're very, very pretty. Very pretty. Again, this is a thin-leafed Hoya. So if it grows like my others, we're going to need some kind of support. The thing that's very cool is that there are, I don't know if I can tip this to show you, but there's a peduncle on each node, on each of the new growth. So that's very exciting. If I remember the blue, of course the blooms are going to be beautiful. If I remember, for some reason, I'm thinking that they're yellow. I could probably go find a picture, but again, I wrote it down because I saw a picture of it and saw the plant and just said yes. I tend to try and trust myself. If I wrote something down on my list, there was a reason for it, and now I can watch it happen. Again, this was just doing really well. I think, looking at the stem and stuff, it came with these two leaves and these two. So all of this is new growth. I just love the look of those. That's just very pretty. Yeah, and there's just some nice little bits of random splash in the leaves. It's very, very cool. I'm psyched about this one. My other thin-leafed Hoyas are doing very well. I've got occultata down here, and I've got Loki, and I've got, what are you called again? Excuse me. I'll remember probably after I'm done filming this. That's why I put tags in them, because sometimes the memory falters. Even when I was younger, sometimes the memory faltered. Anyway, private joke. This has grown really well. This has been lots of fun. I'm really I'm excited to see it bloom. And with luck, we'll see that soon, and I'll keep you updated on that. This is Hoya amicabilis, and this one came from Plant Haven, Toronto. Next one up is Hoya brassii. Now, Hoya brassii is native to Indonesia, to the island of New Guinea, the western province of Papua, near the Palmer River, 2 miles below the junction with the Black River at a height of 100 meters. It was first collected in 1936 by Leonard John Brass, was published by Paul Irwin Forrest and David J. Little, but that publication or publishing didn't meet the criteria for official publication. So it was republished by Nathaniel Simonson and Michaela Rhoda. And it was named after the man who found it, Leonard John Brass, who was an Australian botanist who collected the specimen type, like the one that's the gold standard, or the one we go by. In 1936, on the Fly River expedition of the American Museum of Natural History. And I bought this one for the leaves. When I saw those leaves, I just said, yeah. I don't even remember what pictures the blooms looked like. I just love those leaves. The original leaves are very dark green. Very pretty, slightly raised veins. The newer leaves are coming in, whoops, hold still, behave, are coming in larger, but they still have those raised veins, which are very, very pretty. I like the look of this. So my guess is that it came with these bottom 4 leaves. So this is all new growth in 6 months. 6 months here in essentially the winter. So yeah, this is done very well for me. Again, it's going to need an optimistic trellis pretty soon. The leaves are medium firm. The veining in them is very pretty. I love that dark green, almost black color. So I have this one growing in slightly lower light, and it seems to like it. It's down here. It's in the fallout of one of the grow shelves, maybe 6 inches in front of the grow shelf. So it seems to be liking that. And this is just cool. It hasn't found the reservoir yet. Well, oh yeah, it has. It's found the wick. So there's a baby root. See if I can do this without dripping water everywhere. Probably not be able to see it, but there's a baby root sneaking down the wick. So within the next 6 weeks, I think this is going to take off. Once it finds that food source, it's going to take off. 6 weeks is my time period for what I call Hoya time. Some plants respond right away. Hoyas seem to take a little bit of time. So unless they're putting out a new vine, and once that vine finds something to grab onto, it seems like it can grow 3 or 4 feet in a matter of hours. So that's why you got to keep an eye on some of them when they're new. This looks like it's going to be lots of fun. I really like the look of the leaves. This is Hoya brassii, and this came from Rare Herbs Garden NJ on Etsy. And next up, I'm probably going to open something of a can of worms, but it's me. I'm clearly not concerned about that. And talk about Hoya names. I want to start with learn the names. And I'll give you reasons for it, but learn the names. And don't whine at me and say, oh, but they're so big and hard. You've probably never complained about that in your life before. The fun about Hoya names is they can tell you so much. You'll understand the relationship between plants. You'll sound more intelligent because people will look at you and say, oh, look what she knows. And it'll be easier to find out information about your plant if you have a more complete taxonomy, which is how plant names are commonly referred to as an umbrella term. So I'm pushing you to understand and learn the names. They're easy to pronounce, just sound them out. Syllable by syllable, they work the way English does. There's a whole discussion about the end of Latin words and how the endings are pronounced. Just do what you need to do there. Okay, I have my own theories about how to pronounce the endings, but I'm not a Latin scholar, so what do I know? So I wanted to start with an example of how Hoya names work. And this is my Hoya Descriptors Frida. She's a favorite. She's going to bloom real soon, which I'm very excited about. So let's take a look at that name. Hoya Descriptors Frida. Now the first part, Hoya, is always capitalized. That's the genus name. That's the name of the genus of the plant. which think of it as like the last name, the family name. Denisii is the name of the species. The genus name is always capitalized and usually italicized. The species name is never capitalized and usually italicized. And Frida, if that's where it appears, is the cultivar name. And that's usually done in single quotes, and it's not capitalized, it's not italicized. So that tells you a couple of things. It tells you that this is a Hoya, that the species is Denisii, and that this is the cultivar known as Frida. And that means, in case of this plant, that it's a Denisii with inner variegation. Like that. Very cool. Now we come to the difficult part. And I refer to these as descriptors. And that's terms like pink and Sarawak and Splash. We'll talk about Splash. When you have a descriptor like pink, it's usually not capitalized and it's in parentheses because it describes the plant. So when I talk about my Hoya patella pink, pink is not part of the name of the plant. It's a descriptor of the plant because Hoya patella, there's a clone that blooms in a different color. So we need to separate them, differentiate between the two of them. My Hoya latifolia Sarawak, Sarawak is the name of a place, so it is capitalized, typically goes in parentheses, and it's used to differentiate that particular latifolia. I'm pointing over there because that's where he lives, from the latifolia that lives over here. So those represent characteristics of that specific clone of the plant. I know it might take a bit to wrap your head around that, but that tells you more about the plant. Now, sometimes in a Hoya name, it will have the name of the cultivar. So when you see Hoya, capital H, italicized, and then you see something like Iris Marie is not italicized and goes in single quotes. That tells you that that plant is a hybrid, and it's been cloned because of its characteristics, and that's the name that was assigned to that clone. So Hoya Sunrise, Sunrise is capital S, single quotes, that tells you it's a hybrid. In the case of my plant here, that tells you that it's a cultivar, but it's not a hybrid. And the difference being that it's not a hybrid. It wasn't crossed to produce this. This is some kind of naturally occurring mutation that has intervariegation. I know. It'll take you a while and you'll take some practice to get your head around that. But that's the intro to names. Descriptors. Descriptors are adjectives that are used to help differentiate different clones from one another. Now, typically you'd see something like this, and at one point it would have been referred to as Hoya subquintuplonervis albomarginata. Now, albomarginata is not actually part of the name of the plant. Albomarginata means white margins or white edges, and was just used to differentiate it from a solid green or an intervariegated subquintuplonervis. Terms like albomarginata, mediopicta, some of the others like that were Latinized, but aren't really part of the name. So the common practice now for plants like that is to simply use the term inner or outer variegated. and it goes in parentheses, comes after the plant. If you're showing a picture of your plant, you don't really need to identify it as outer variegated because, duh. So in conversation with friends, you would refer to it as being outer variegated. We can lose terms like mediopicta and albomarginata because they've just gone out of fashion. Those terms came into fashion and now they've gone out of fashion. It's just simpler to describe what you see on the plant. Splash. This is the one that's going to get people cranked. The word splash is not part of the name of any Hoya. Splash is a descriptor. It's used to describe a clone of the plant that appeared to have more splash than other clones of the plant. It's not a separate cultivar. It's not a separate species. And it's slapped on a lot of things to try and sell it, that plant, as something new that you don't have. Now, this is my Hoya parviflora, and that's not sulfur. That's how it looks. And I've seen people listing this as Hoya parviflora Splash. That's just how it is. There are going to be vines or leaves that have more splash or less splash. That's how it works with Hoyas. But it's not necessarily a new clone or a new species. It just, under observation, had a bit more splash. So when you see that term, pause for it, put the brakes on for a moment and think about what it's telling you. It's not a different clone. It might be a different clone. Let's put it that way. It might be a different clone. It's not a different species. New clones often come about when one vine of a plant puts out some mutation that is not typical for that species. They cut that vine, root it, get it growing, find out that that mutation is fairly stable. And if it has some characteristic like more splash than usual, or it has a different color, like it's more of a mint green than a dark green, then it's often labeled as something, 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 splash, or something, 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 mint. Part of it is a marketing technique, and part of it does help to identify that particular clone. But it's not like somebody's found a new species. It's still what it is. I mean, if you had a Hoya parviflora that had more species than that, or more splash than that, although I don't quite know how that's possible, you could try and sell it as Hoya parviflora Splash, but parviflora comes with splash anyway, so think twice about that term splash. Realize what it is. It's still valuable, still keep it with your plant name, but it's not part of the plant name. It's a descriptor, goes in parentheses. And finally, accession numbers. Now, this is the Hoya paradisea that we looked at just a little bit ago, and you may have noticed that I added the numbers NS11159. That NS11159 is an accession number, and it refers to this particular clone of Hoya paradisea. And I mentioned that there was another clone out there. I don't remember what its accession number is, but it's different. If your plant comes with an accession number, keep it. Don't let it go. Let it get lost. If it didn't come with an accession number, don't add it. You don't get to do that. The accession number is usually the initials of the person who published it or person who discovered it or the organization that discovered it and some way of identifying it. So, your happy botanist is out in the jungle and they see something, it looks like it's a Hoya, they take a cutting, they take it back home, They need to identify that cutting. They don't know what it is yet. So they give it an accession number. In this case, NS11 is not Niall Simonson. The 11 indicates that it was probably collected in 2011. And the 159, that it was the 159th sample she had taken that year. And that number identifies that particular clone. Because as we know, the same Hoya growing in different parts of the world can look very different. So that's what an accession number is. If you got one, keep it. If you didn't get it, you can't just look and say, oh, well, it looks like that, so I'm going to add that accession number. No. We don't do that. That accession number is important, and it's not something you should tamper with. I know that was kind of basic, and there are exceptions to all of those guidelines. But I was just hoping for, especially for new people, to start to get a handle on what their plants are called and why it's important to learn that. It just makes growing the Hoyas more fun because I start to see the relationships. And if you know that latifolia likes certain kinds of care in general, that can be a good way to start with your new latifolia. As I said, there are all kinds of exceptions. We didn't even get into Hoya carnosa, tricolor, and rubra, and all that other stuff. And rubra actually is a cultivar name, so that's just a whole mess there. But yeah, make a point of learning the names, getting to know what they mean and how they work. And thanks again to my friends who donated to support the channel. As I said, it's really important. It does a lot of it behind the scenes, but it helps make everything I do possible. And the question for the comments this week is primarily for those of us in the Northern Hemisphere who are getting warmer temperatures and longer days. What Hoyas are in bloom at your house? I've shown you some of mine. Bella's going strong. Fungi's about ready to burst. Thompsoni's about ready to open up. The others, Disculpiae and Loki are going crazy. Multiflora, it's always going crazy. So tell me what's in bloom at your house. And as always, I want to thank you for choosing to spend a little bit of your time with me this weekend. Please remember to click that thumbs up like button, the subscribe button, the notification bell. They're all really important to help my channel grow. A lot of the products that you've seen me use are available through my Amazon storefront, and there's a link in the description to that. I receive a small commission on the sales, but it doesn't affect your price at all. If you'd like to support the channel, there's a link in the description to my Buy Me a Coffee page, or there's a super thanks button down here someplace. YouTube handles all the super thanks stuff. Links to a couple more videos over here, and enjoy the rest of your week's end.